Second part. So you came, D. Gilson said to the hunter without turning to face him. Looks like your DNA responded to the alien presence after all. Yes. This is an invader from far beyond the Milky Way. As you are no doubt well aware, since Earth was first created, countless aliens have visited it. Of them all, none ever held more sinister intentions than these. His opponent hauled back its long spear, and then hurled it at Gilson, easily batting it aside with his scepter, and the nobleman aimed the black jewel adorning the scepter's top at his foe. And the beam it unleashed was black as ink. It bounced off his opponent's chest, melting the floor by D's feet, and sending up scalding vapor. It was an insanely powerful beam. This light can penetrate 3 floors, punching through 100 feet of rock, said Gilson. It looks like I have a foe unaffected by beam weapons.
And when did he get that weapon?
The hoarse voice inquired.
10,000 years ago. The nobility might have been physically far superior to human beings, but I never heard their science was equally advanced. The technology they've got now is the result of 10 millennia of progress. You were asleep all that time, and yet you've got command of a science beyond modern levels. Is that alien technology?
Indeed. Gilson bent down. A crossbow-like weapon on his foe's back had just popped up over its shoulder, and there was a sound like the dull hiss of escaping gas, which was then coupled with the strident clash of iron on steel.
Oh!
A cry of surprise escaped the hunter's left hand. Pressed to the left side of his chest, D's fist held a black arrow. It had been fired at Gilson, who deflected it with his scepter and sent it to assail D to his rear. The golden cape danced out, spreading in the air above his opponent's head. It looked like a gold cloud. His foe's right hand reached for some kind of gun. A crimson beam pierced the gloom and the gleaming cloud. Flaming, the cape hit the floor. But when the foe realized it was only the noble's cape and turned, its body was pierced from behind by an arcing, scimitar-like rib sword. No doubt imagining the scene to follow, his foe tried to flee, but its body was pinned by the rib and held fast. The scepter brought down from overhead smashed the foe's head, and sent orange brains flying in all directions. Cause me trouble, will you? Looking down at the titanic form that lay at his feet, and confirming that it was dead, Gilson turned his eyes toward D. There was a loud snap by the nobleman's chest. The arrow D had hurled had been caught by Gilson's chest, stopping it dead. So, the man called D favors cowardly acts.
You did it first.
The hoarse voice shot back. The fact that the arrow Gilson deflected had gone straight at D was no coincidence. At any rate, the technology in this castle was obtained from these creatures. When they came to Earth 10,000 years ago, it was not the human race that tracked them down and fought them off, but our kind. Although the science of their weapons was more advanced than our own, none of their weapons could slay mortals. We destroyed their spaceships and exterminated hundreds of their kind, taking fewer than 10 of them captive. and the sacred ancestor ordered that they should be disposed of immediately. No doubt because he was loath to have anyone but himself acquire the technology. I was entombed deep in the earth because I stood at the fore in the battle against the sacred ancestor, but also because I disobeyed him in this. In Gilzen's fingers, the metal arrow twisted as if it were made of rubber. His eyes were burning red, as if running to ground the memories of the past. Yes, the sacred ancestor buried me in the cold, dark earth, and he said our minds weren't yet ready to acquire the technology of an alien world. Such preening. If we had adopted that technology then, the nobility could have ruled the world without waiting for nuclear war first. I have read the record matrix stored in this castle, and that remained here above ground but disassembled. And I know what was passed in the last 10 millennia. And the sacred ancestor is a fool. Had we done things my way, we would have ruled over the humans while their power was still intact, and could have avoided our present decline. And do you know what kind of future he wanted? And the fearsome scepter was pointed at D, but he didn't flinch in the slightest. To a degree, he said. Then this should be easy to explain. To tell the truth, the sacred ancestor and I adopted the same approach. However, unlike him, I also used the aliens. Lurie, who was clinging to Dee's waist, suddenly looked up at the hunter. So they were sealed away in this castle and subjected to memory analysis. But it seems that wasn't enough. That came from Dee. Gilzen lowered his scepter and grinned bitterly. You're right. I believed we'd adopted their techniques perfectly, but there was some flaw in the way we put them to sleep. And they escaped, and now they wandered the castle searching for a way out. How many are there? 4, now 3 remain. They're formidable. What do you say, Dee? Will you give me a hand? This has nothing to do with me. Nothing to do with you. Lurie's body flew a good 15 feet, where the boy landed on his ass on the stone floor. One sweep of Dee's arm had done that. I was hired to take the contents of that coffin alive, or failing that to destroy it. Gilzen, will you accept that you're on the road to your own destruction? No, thank you. The nobleman's right hand rose, and then a terrific spray of sparks exploded in front of his face. The distant stone wall shook from the impact. His scepter had parried Dee's blade, striking in the same motion the hunter had drawn it. Are you in a hurry to die, Dee? As Gilzen leapt back 10 feet, he aimed the black jewel in his scepter at Dee, but the strange beam that could carve through 100 feet of rock didn't fire. With Dee approaching right before him, Gilzen projected his scythe-like ribs from his sides. It looked as if the one his opponent had lopped off earlier had returned as well. A sweet and sour stench assailed Lurie's nostrils. A sword for a pen, and blood as the ink? In this hall where the stink of alien blood had begun to waft, and they would write of a new battle, a new tale of life and death. However, the fray came to a hasty conclusion. Dee and Gilzen had both turned to look in the same direction Lurie had initially come from. That voice. He's been finished, I suppose. Gilzen made a light leap, Dee's blade flew after him. All it cut was a piece of his cape, and by that point Gilson had reached the door. I'm going on ahead. I shall be back. But Dee, what would have happened if I wasn't here right now, but rather was standing behind you? Before the hunter knew it, the door had opened, and now it closed behind Gilson.
That bastard's gained the power to teleport. The nobility scientists couldn't make that a reality for all their trying. But it looks like the aliens had the technology to do it. Anyway, I do wonder what would have happened.
Despite the needling tone, Dee kept his silence, but his eyes suddenly shot toward Lurie. The diminutive figure was just being swallowed up by a pit that had opened without warning. A black dagger whistled from Dee's right hand, sinking halfway into the gap between the closing floor sections. Walking over like a shadow, Dee grabbed the dagger's hilt with his left hand, and in an instant had twisted it in an impossible direction. Far off to the right, something heavy moved, and beyond a concealed door loomed the entrance to a passageway wide enough for two adults to walk abreast. Looks like things aren't going your way, eh? Dee, are you gonna look for the kid, or...
Looks like things aren't going your way, eh? Dee, are you gonna look for the kid, or...
The search for Gilson comes first. Dee informed the horse force in a low, clipped tone before walking toward the passageway.
Page break.
The woman had a hole in her chest that you could see clean through. Doesn't that hurt? To Vera's query, the huntress Lilia replied, a little. I'm sure for the real nobility, something like this would be a walk in the park. But for the half-baked version like me, it's not quite so easy. Looking at the door to the back of the room, Lilia said, Forget me. How's she doing? She was the owner of the room they were in, Jean. The two of them were in an artlessly appointed living room with just a table and a few rough chairs, while the owner of the room lay in bed in the back bedroom now that her injury had been tended to. The wound's no great problem, but the pain won't subside. Unless Duke Gilson lifts his curse, and there's nothing that can be done. So that formless man is here to comfort her, then. He must be her beau. As Lilia extended her thumb, the gesture of her boyfriend in some regions, the doctor applied a sterile pad to her naked back. Stop moving around. And I wouldn't know anything about that, Vera said reprovingly. But as she leveled that reproach, she couldn't help but admit to herself that the woman who sat there with her thumb up was the only reason she and Jean were still alive. It had been a horrifying split second. The faceless creature's gun had pierced Lilia's heart, and ignoring her as she staggered, it had drawn the longsword from its hip as it bore down on them. Vera had felt the wings of death brush her, but their foe was not 30 feet down the corridor, where it slammed into a stone pillar. Look as she might, Vera had seen no one there but the other two women. Second part, end.